Well, this is certainly one way to find out what's going down at the waterfront. I mean, walking down to the beach and finding out what's going on with your own eyes is certainly an effective way. But you could also use Seagull. That's why we built it. Find out what's going on out on the water. Whether you're at the beach, at the lakefront, maybe the ocean front in my case, whatever it is, Seagull's got it. I'm Tim Kearns, I'm the CIO at Gloss, and I look forward to seeing you in Seagull and on the live stream. In the meantime, enjoy your coffee.
Hi, I'm Shelby, the Observing Technology Manager at Gloss. And while I couldn't find a toque like Tim's, I did find this hat laying around in my house. So I'm looking forward to hearing all about the Seagull updates and what's been going on in the user group live stream on Wednesday night. See you there. Hey Tim, you're on mute. So not only did you not wear your toque, I wore this hat by myself.
Well, how many times in the last 3 years have people heard the term, "You're on mute, we can't hear you"? So there, I've just done it again for the 1 millionth time, probably.
Last time for 2022, though, right? Probably.
That's true. That joke will get stale quick. Well, I love your toque. I don't know if it qualifies as a toque, but I think considering it comes from the North Pole, which is sort of attached to Canada, it qualifies as a toque.
Thanks, Tim. I couldn't find one as discreet as yours, but I was hoping that this would cut the bill still.
Well, for those of you who aren't familiar with toque, it's a truly and a uniquely Canadian term for, wool hat or something that you wear on your head to keep you warm. And I'm wearing mine right now, but it's actually warm in my house now, so I'm going to take it off. And welcome to the second installment of the Seagull live stream. We're super excited to have you here, either now live with us or watching this after the fact on YouTube. We did this on August the 30th, I think it was, the end of the summer, while it was in the height of the field season for Seagull. And it was fantastic to have so many people visit and watch this video after it was recorded. So maybe the same will happen this time. It will be available on the Gloss YouTube channel, and feel free to dial in there later or tell your colleagues and friends about it after the fact. Well, and also welcome back, Shelby. I mean, I haven't really seen you since the last time we did a live stream, because why?
The last webinar was pretty busy, getting ready for this little lady. So she came in on to world on September 5th. So she was a Labor Day baby. And so I just returned from maternity leave. I'm part-time and I really have no idea what's been happening with Seagull. So this is really a great opportunity for me to hear it from you, Tim.
Well, now you put the pressure on, Shelby, but well, welcome back. It's great to have you and your baby Eleanor. Super cute. It's amazing that everything worked out for you, and very happy for you, but also very glad to have you back. So before I share not only with you, Shelby, everything that's happened in Seagull the last few months, here's just a little bit of structure of what we're going to cover over the next 30 minutes or so. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to joke about toques and hats. Oh, we've already done that. All right. The second thing we're going to do is I'm going to share a little bit about what's new in Seagull. Then we're going to introduce, we've got Jim and Kim, who are charter boat captains and owners here with us. You're going to introduce them, and we're going to field some questions from them, and we're going to ask some questions of them on their use of Seagull and what we could do with it. Then we're going to also talk about what's coming in Seagull over the next several months. I mean, this is the winter season for us. It's also development season. I mean, we develop year round, but we like to crank a lot of stuff out in the wintertime. We'll open it up for some questions and answers from you, the audience. We've got people streaming in through the Seagull users live stream. And I'm assuming our producer, David, is around. So hopefully users have an ability to submit questions through the live stream. And then I think we've got a chance for some swag, if I'm not mistaken. So let's get right in. Did you have any other questions, Shelby, before we take it any further?
No, that sounds great. Let's get into it.
All right. So there's a comment section on StreamYard, and by all means, pop in there and ask your question, and we'll get to it. And if we don't get to it live, then we'll for sure respond to it either in the comment section on our YouTube channel, or we'll publish it out through the Seagull newsletters that we send. All right. Well, if we go full screen now.
And while Tim is getting this up, if people are signed in and they want to share where they're tuning in from, we love to see the variety of people who we get interested in this. So please feel free to comment in whatever platform you're watching from, where you're calling in from. And go ahead, Tim.
Thanks, Shelby. So the first thing, this is clearly familiar to you. If you're not familiar with Seagull, then that's okay. We're glad that you're here. This is Seagull. It's an application. It's actually a platform, actually, that we built for data and information services in the Great Lakes. GLOS is a nonprofit. We are the only certified, the IUCE certified regional association to provide this kind of data and information in the Great Lakes. And we do this all for free. We receive most of our funding through federal grants, and we're pleased to be able to offer this service to you and your colleagues and researchers and water utilities and all kinds of other users around the Great Lakes, and of course, hundreds of thousands of recreational boaters as well. So this is Seagull. We released it in April of this year. And the first thing I wanted to draw your attention to, because if you're familiar with Seagull, you're probably thinking, the last time I saw Seagull, a lot of those dots were actually all green. And the reason they're not all green right now is because as we start to hover over them, we'll see that, these platforms, if it's been marked orange, the upper right corner, we've got a legend. Green dots are active, red dots are inactive, orange dots means they've been recovered for the summer, yellow is unavailable for some reason, and then gray means it's been decommissioned. So we have a lot of orange dots. Because it's the field season, these buoys usually get recovered in the fall. So that's the first thing I wanted to point out to you if you're wondering why we have so many orange dots instead of green dots on the map. The second thing that I wanted to point out to you is, maybe I'm just gonna, well, I'll go back to it. Oops. As you can see on the map, I'm zooming in and out, I'm panning around, I'm doing lots of things, I'm clicking on stuff, and I haven't gotten what we affectionately call at GLOS the white screen of death, which is like a bug. It happens from time to time, but I wanted to share with you this slide. The other thing that we've been doing the last few months is that we've been working on the back end. So when we think of Seagull, we call it a platform. It's a bit like an iceberg. And the reason is because there's the front end, the part that you see, and the back end, the part that you don't see. Just like an iceberg, it takes up, the back end takes up a whole ton of code and material, that effort and energy that's gone into this. And we're not done. And so when we look at filling in the front end and the back end, this is where we are. Now, what I wanted to share with you is over the last few months, we've really been spending a lot of time on the back end to try and improve the stability so that when you go into Seagull, you don't have any bugs and crashes. Now, I'm not going to say that there's never any bugs and crashes, but we've gone a long way to improve those bugs and crashes. I did want to show you another thing that we had a lot of users ask. They asked us, they said stuff like, look, we know that some platforms are sponsored or they're in partnership with others. And so I'm going to look for one of my favorite buoys. It's actually a spotter buoy. I forget the whole name of it, but I think it's called Betsy or something. Here it is right here. When I go to the Dive Deeper page, I've got all of the parameters on screen like I usually have, but in the lower right, we now have partner logos. And not only do we have the partner logos, you can actually actively click on those and it'll bring you right to that resource. And you can learn about, in this case, Sleeping Bear, which obviously sponsors this platform, Betsy. Oops. Oh, I've lost my Seagull. I've lost my Seagull. I think I closed the whole browser. Just bear with me for 1 second here. All right. I'm back. I'm back in Seagull. Okay. Now, I showed you the partner logos that you can click on. I shouldn't have closed the browser. Obviously, should have just closed the tab. There's another big enhancement that we've made, but it requires me to log in. So I'm just going to do that. Now, if you're not familiar with this aspect of Seagull, I'm logging in with my username and password. These are free accounts. And if you do have a free account on Seagull, then it allows you to customize your experience that you have in Seagull. In the upper right corner, you can see I've got a profile, notifications, favorites, stuff like that, my groups. I've also got preferences. Now, we've had units of measurement as preferences for quite a while, but what we now have is the ability to change preferences on individual parameters. Now, I could change, for instance, air pressure at mean sea level. I think I'll leave it as, I'll change it to this one. I can change air temperature, chlorophyll concentration. I might need Shelby to weigh in here. I don't even know what some of this stuff means. There was one I was looking at earlier. I had, oh yes, ammonium and ammonia. Shelby, can you just weigh in? What is the difference between these two parameters? And you've got a PhD and I don't, so I'm hoping you can tell me.
Ammonia is NH3 and ammonium is NH4 with a positive. It's a positive ion, but basically they're very similar. They're slightly different how you measure them.
Sounds like chemistry, and if I recall, I think I got 44% in chemistry in high school. So it's not my jam, but for those of you whose chemistry is your jam, then you can find things like ammonium and ammonia, and you can change your unit preferences. So this was a huge addition for us. I'm also going to show you in a few minutes what's coming. But now when I click on a buoy or platform that has something like air pressure at mean sea level, you can see this unit that I just changed a few minutes ago. The last thing I wanted to show you is models. Now we've got our filter pane on the upper left. You're probably familiar with that, where we can navigate based on lakes, or we can change based on status, only activated if we just wanted to see all the green dots, or we can have towers or other platforms. But what we did is we moved the model layers outside of the filter pane. For instance, when I click on wind speed, I was told earlier by my colleagues in the Midwest that it's quite windy today. There was some gusts in tens of knots on some of our platforms on the water. This is just a phenomenal view of what's happening in the Midwest right now. We've also got other model data. Of course, we've got currents, water current, which shows it not only in color but also if we zoom in, we can see some of the currents. Zoom in a little bit more, a little bit hard to see, low resolution. And then the last one, of course, is water temperature, which is very popular, particularly among our fishing community. Now, what's interesting about this model here is, I'm sure you're wondering, Tim, I think there's a bug. The bug being that there's nothing for Lake Superior. And the reason we don't have anything for Lake Superior is because actually a lot of this water temperature sensors are connected through underground pipes, and in the wintertime they freeze. So the folks at the lab who actually monitor this, they turn off the water temperature measurements over the wintertime because they have to heat those pipes, and it would actually provide a false reading. So that's why if you go to Seagull for the winter months for Lake Superior, you're not going to see water temperature at all. And that's all I've got for now. I will show you a few things of what's coming in the future. Just wanted to call out one more thing before we go. If you ever want to provide feedback, we've got the Seagull bar at the top of the page. It allows you to provide any feedback. You can comment on a feature and you can post it. You can draw features if you want, and then you can fill out your information below and click submit, and it'll go straight into our system, and we'll get back to you within 24 hours usually.
And we look at all those comments individually and try to incorporate that into what we design to come next. So I want to thank everyone who commented on where they were calling in from. But I hate to break it to everyone. Our special guests, Kim and Jim Musselman, definitely have the most tropical and maybe most desirable location today on this very blustery last day of November. So I'd like to thank them for calling in and say hi. And we look forward to hearing your experience with Seagull. So first of all, I'm curious how you got involved with Seagull and how do you use it in your business?
Go ahead.
Well, we would, for our fishing charter business, we were relying on the NOAA website, which is a bit cumbersome, and it wasn't showing. I think come July, we couldn't get the water temperature, was it, or the wind, wave. There were a couple things that weren't showing up, and
actually everything I needed wasn't there.
And it was frustrating because we rely on that heavily. We look at that every single day or every single charter if we have multiple charters, to make sure the conditions are going to be good for us to take customers out for safety's sake. And so it was so frustrating. We didn't know what to do. And I noticed a link on the NOAA website for, I don't know, customer support or whatever. And I submitted my request or my problem, and they said, yeah, we're working on it. Somebody from the University of Michigan, and they had actually gone out to the weather buoy and did some work on it. But they said, in the meantime, that you can use Seagull, and they gave us the link for that. So that's how we discovered it. And it was like, oh, wow, this is great. So now it's, right on our phones, right on the, front of our phones, so that it's handy. And so that's how we discovered it.
That's great. I'm really glad to hear that. It sounds like that's how you use it too, is how you're using the NOAA website, but you then switch over to Seagull, which was designed with a more user interface, with a more public-facing view in mind, rather than the NOAA side, which is more operational and has a little bit different purpose. So that's, this was purpose-built for the Great Lakes community to access information and data. So that's fantastic. And we know that Seagull isn't perfect, as much as we like to hope it will be one day, but how would you like to see it changed or evolved in the future to meet your needs?
We discussed that, and honestly, I think it, it serves our purpose. I think at one point, I don't know if we like the mile per hour and rather than knots ourselves, and even though we're boaters, we kind of prefer that. And I think in the beginning we didn't have that option. I don't remember, but I noticed now you can change that. But it really has everything that we need, and I couldn't think of anything really that would improve it for our sake, for our purposes. So
okay. Well, that's great to hear. I'm glad that it's meeting your purposes, and I hope that you find the improving functionality that we're, like the additional units and the alerts useful for you as you continue to use it going forward. So we would like to continue growing Seagull to meet more needs for people around the Great Lakes. We think this has a lot of potential, and we want to see it realized. How do you think we could get more people engaged with Seagull or share it more broadly? Like, have you referred people, or how do you see people who aren't maybe knowledgeable about this wanting to hear about it?
Yeah,
just word of mouth. We've shared it with a few people. You could, you got the Charter Boat Association in Michigan that has a lot of contacts with the fishermen. I don't know how else you could get it out there.
Well, I don't know if we're members of NACO, National Association of Michigan Charter Boat Association. We're members of it, as well as NACO. And I don't know if that's something they could put on their website. We refer customers who are looking, they're looking for a fishing charter, and they look us up and they find out, oh, we're not going to be in Petoskey, we're going to be this part of the state. So we tell them, go to that website and plug in, where you are looking for a charter boat captain. And so we refer people that way, but
to the Michigan Charter Boat Association.
Right.
They've got fishermen in every city and every port, so they can.
Okay, that's awesome.
if they're going to be in a certain port, they can just look up a
Mhm.
captain or charter boat in that port.
That's a great idea. And we've, heard ideas to put QR codes near the docks of the actual harbors, and that maybe not every port has a buoy, but a lot of ports, especially around Lake Michigan, have some buoys that everyone has their own favorite for sure. So that's a great suggestion. And I also invite the audience who's listening right now to also, if you have suggestions or things that maybe you've noticed with Seagull or ways that you've shared it, to share those with us. We love having those use cases, and it's really great. It's a really great way for us to get feedback and how we're improving and ways that we can continue to improve, even if it's not maybe a bug on Seagull, but something that you would like to see. Please feel free to share that, because we're trying to meet as many needs as possible. So I'm really happy that we were able to help you guys out, Jim and Kim. Any final thoughts before we let you guys go back to your Key West relaxing?
The marinas use this information a lot too. So, contacting the state marinas, the local marinas might be another way, send out some kind of mass mailing to the different marinas.
Right. And they could post a link to,
yeah, because they use all this information. And...
Cool. All right. Well, thank you both so much for your time, and enjoy that chocolate-covered key lime pie in a stick, and think of me who didn't do that when I was in Key West. Thank you both.
You bet.
All right.
All right. That was really great to hear from them. Tim, can you show our audience a little bit about what's coming next? I think, we've shown them what we've done, but let's give them a little teaser on what they can expect before next field season.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so before I do that, there's a few things that I'll tell you about, and then I'll show you a few selected designs. So we're always adding new backend content that I mentioned to you. That's partially for bug fixes and stabilization, but it's also for new data pipelines. And one of those pipelines that we're adding right now is glider data. And gliders are underwater. They're generally underwater vehicles that navigate through the water, and they go up and they go down, and they collect various information and data along the way. Usually when they surface, then they'll transmit that data to a receiver, either on land or by satellite. That data gets collected and it gets broadcast through systems like Seagull. Now, we've been wanting to do this for a long time. There's several gliders that are operational in the Great Lakes. These are fascinating vehicles, and we're super excited for next summer to be able to have this data in Seagull. So what I'll quickly show you, I need to share my screen again. Oh, no, we don't. All right. So this is the first example of some glider data of what it will look like in Seagull. So you can, if you imagine, once a glider goes underwater, it's pretty difficult to track it. The glider might have an idea where it is, but in reality, we're not able to really locate its exact position underwater. However, when it surfaces, then it's able to broadcast its approximate position of where it was and also where it plans to go. But it also reveals a bunch of data that it collected along the way. So this is what it's going to look like. This is an example of 3 different gliders that are out in the water right now collecting data. And where as you can see in the upper right example, where it's an orange circle, that means the glider is no longer active, or it's been recovered, and the mission perhaps is over for that event. But the other 2, the green ones, you can see the start and the stop of where the gliders started or is still active in the water. So that's pretty exciting. You can see we've got a few. A new balloon here, a modal where you can turn on and off the path, or you can exit out entirely. Now, what does this look like from a data standpoint? From a data standpoint, this is what it would look like if we had the same gliders. If you had selected on one of them, this is called Lake Superior Glider in the snapshot tab. And then when we get into the dive deeper tab, then we get the full experience of what happens. This is an example of water temperature every time this glider has surfaced and broadcast. And these are the interpolated measurements that are collected along the way. So we're super excited to be introducing gliders into Seagull. Another major feature that's coming is, now I showed you this, I'm super excited about this one. I showed you the ability to change your preferences, but we've had so many users that have asked us, well, can you not only change your preferences, but I want to pin my favorite preferences so that when I go to my favorite buoy, in this case, it's Port Sheldon, I want to be able to see the parameters that I want to see. Maybe it's ammonia and ammonium, or maybe it's wind speed and wave direction. Whatever it'll be, then you'll be able to pin that as part of your favorites. And it's not just on the desktop, it's also on mobile. As you know, Seagull was built as a mobile friendly or a mobile optimized application, which means that most 95% of the features that you have in the desktop version are designed to also work in the mobile version without it getting little tiny little words that make it difficult for you to see. Okay, so this is one of the other features that's coming. However, as I mentioned, you can't get to this feature functionality unless you have a free account on Seagull. I'm pleased to report that when we launched Seagull in April of 2022, we had around 200 users. They were mostly our early beta users. Some of them had requested to be part of our beta program. Some were specially invited to be part of the beta program. But then we grew that number, I should say you grew that number to 1,000 users by the end of the field season, which is fantastic. We're super, super thrilled about that statistic. Where we'd like to take it next year, where we could use your help, is we want to grow that to be 10 times that by the end of next field season. That's right. We want to have 10,000 users on Seagull, registered users on Seagull by the end of the next field season. Now that's just registered users. We had well over 100,000 visitors to Seagull in the first field season alone. So, you know, also phenomenal statistics when you think about it. We want to grow that number by tenfold as well. We want 1 million users to visit Seagull next summer. And we're just, you know, we're very confident that we can do it, but we do need your help. All right. The only other thing, a couple of things that I don't have visuals to show you, but we are working on, is the ability to plot multiple parameters onto a single graph, and also to be able to access historical data on Seagull. Now, we're still working out the design of how that will, what the experience will be, but certainly the ability to plot multiple parameters. And that has come in from some of our research communities. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. And we will absolutely be getting that into Seagull. All right, Shelby, what's next in our agenda? I think we've got time for some questions from the audience, if there are any that have been coming in.
Yeah, I think now we're waiting for questions. I'd like to give a shout out to those people who called in. Captain David Slider. Sorry, David, definitely not. Don't mean to butcher that, but he's from Pictured Rocks Cruises up in Munising, Michigan. B. Bernard and Hamilton, Ontario. Got our second Canadian on the call at least. And Jane Reed from Duluth, Minnesota. So they might be gone by now, but we appreciate them participating in the comment section. So if there's any more questions, please feel free to type those in and we'll see those and have a chance to answer those and discuss. Otherwise, we can hang out for a few minutes and maybe talk about swag opportunities. If there are any. I think we need to get Jim and Kim a Seagull hat or a Seagull sticker.
How about a Seagull toque? I think that would be very appropriate, don't you? It's wintertime after all.
I was thinking that. I was like, how do we have a Seagull toque? But I was more looking for a Seagull onesie.
That's a great idea.
Our little Seagullette, little chick.
Well, we're pretty active on social media, and we've got an Instagram account, and we've got a regular blog, and we've got our newsletters that go out. And of course, we're very active on Twitter and YouTube as well. So I think David, our producer, was looking for people who are going to contribute social media posts about Seagull or your experiences on Seagull, hopefully positive, but we'll take the negative ones as well. We can handle it. That there could be some swag opportunities for you. So we invite you to post on social media on your behalf, but on our behalf as well. We appreciate that. So Shelby, do you think we should do one of these again?
Yeah, but I don't think I'm going to bring any new guests to the next one. I think it's going to be just me. I don't think I'm going to introduce anyone else. We actually just got a question in from Alex. He asks, or she asks, do you foresee webcams from the shore being integrated into Seagull?
That's a great question. And thanks for bringing that up, Alex. If you don't mind, Shelby, I'll take that one. We've had lots of discussion around webcams. So there's two different types of webcams. We do have webcams on many platforms themselves. We'll be making a change to that in the future. Right now, for some of those webcams, it's embedded inside Seagull. In the future, some of those will actually take you out to a third-party service who provides that webcam feature. For other webcams, it'll stay embedded inside Seagull. So that's one aspect of webcams. Another webcam, and you're not the first person who's asked this, and it's phenomenal because as technologies on cottages, on the end of wharfs or lakefront properties have become much more accessible and cheaper to implement and use, people have asked us if we could implement them into Seagull. And the answer is yes. It is on our roadmap. We want to implement them into Seagull. For us, it's about figuring out the design of what it would look like from an experience standpoint, but also on the back end. And how do we get those feeds into Seagull? Do we have to store them? Do we copy them? Do we live stream it? Not really sure, but it is high on our priority list to do. I can't say it's going to happen before the next field season, but we are looking at it. And thanks for bringing it up, Alex. It's a great way to find out really real-time conditions about what's going on the lakes.
Absolutely. But yeah, I think maybe we should do another one of these, Tim, getting back to your question before we talked about webcams. I think we should do another one of these, maybe around our next Glossopalooza or early next summer. Hard to say that we're thinking about summer as we're just entering winter, but
right. Well, I'm always thinking about summer because that's Seagull season to me. However, one other thing that I did want to mention to users that we are looking at ways to improve Seagull and augment new data into Seagull so it becomes more of a year-round platform. So stay tuned on that front. There's some ice models that we can add into Seagull. There's some other data sets. We've got drifting buoys that might be able to survive over the wintertime. So we're always looking for ways to improve Seagull so it becomes a year-round data and information service, not just a seasonal one.
Right, because it's not a limitation of Seagull; it's a limitation of what our observing platforms can do in the winter. So and there's a really strong interest in getting more observations out in the winter because it really is kind of a, we don't know, it's a curtain. We don't know what's happening in the lakes for the most part. So there is an interest in people are really starting to work on that. So hopefully we can be included when those observations come to fruition.
That's great. And as anyone who is selling seashells by the seashore, she would know that seagulls never sleep. So Seagull certainly is a 24/7 operation. I only did it once, though. I have to do it 9 more times to really make a mess of it. But yeah, I think we should do another one in the spring before our next field season. We'll be happy to report to you on the progress that we've made over the winter months, the developing months, but also the progress that we hope to see in Seagull over the next summer. So with that, Shelby, thank you for joining us today. Welcome back, and welcome little Eleanor as well. And for all of those who tuned in today or will tune in the future, very excited to have you. Thanks again. And we've got one more question. Also, Alex, great question. Absolutely. The question is about, do you foresee on-ramps for data from citizen science or scientists? 100%. That is also on our roadmap. We're already doing a program called crowdsourced bathymetry, where vessels of opportunity can collect data and feed that into Seagull. Now, that's a little more on the backside. Nothing to see there yet. We're still building that out. But we're also looking at doing that for the public who have relatively inexpensive or even expensive devices that want to connect and provide that data to Seagull. For us, it's more about metadata and how do we message and communicate that through the Seagull experience. But thanks for bringing that up. We also really look forward to having citizen science data in Seagull as well, which, webcam data is citizen science. When you think about it, it's real-time video feeds that are streaming into Seagull. That's part of citizen science. That's the public getting involved. That's what we're hoping to do with Seagull.
Absolutely. That is a great question. And I think we're going to sign off now, but thank you. And feel free to send any questions or comments over. We're always here and love hearing from people who use our platform or are just interested in the Great Lakes data in general. So have a good rest of your evening, Tim, and a good evening to everyone else who listened.
Thanks, you too, Shelby, and thanks to all of you who tuned in today. You can reach us at any time via the Seagull bar, inside Seagull, or support@gloss.org.
Bye, everyone.